Let's speak now to Jonathan Davis, who is an economist and wealth manager. A very warm good morning to you, Jonathan. How are you?
And a very warm thank you. I'm very well on this bank holiday Monday, which isn't sunny, of course.
No, but that's what's to be expected, isn't it?
Well, exactly. I come from this, from a big picture point of view. I said to your excellent colleague Simon Lederman around the vote for Scotland independence that if I had a vote, which I in fact didn't, I would have voted for Scotland to leave. Why? Because I believe that governments which are as close to the people as you can get them are more easily governed by the people. Clearly in Scotland, they're effectively governed from London, and here in Britain, we're governed by Brussels. In America, California is governed by New York and Washington, and so on. In other words, it doesn't work. Get the government as close to the people as possible. That's the principal reason why I'm for us leaving the EU.
Okay, so you are definitely for us leaving the EU, not having some reforms.
There cannot be reforms which will be material. You asked the question, what should David Cameron be going for?
Yes.
Do you know what? Whatever he goes for, he'll pretty well get. Because they will be delighted to give him whatever he wants in order for Britain to stay in the EU. In other words, it will not be material, and it will be a massive red herring, and it will not affect things much at all. And someone in your programme already said that the EU is about pro the big corporate, pro the big banks, and they're absolutely correct. I'm the little guy who has to deal with mountains of regulations, of paperwork, of time-consuming activities just to comply with regulations. You know, if I were in banking, if I were one of the big banks, I'd kill myself laughing every day that we're in the EU.
But then, Jonathan, can I ask you a question? And I am not an expert. You're an economist. This is your field. If Britain voted to leave the EU, we would then have to negotiate a new trading relationship with what would now be, 27 member organisations, so that we can allow British firms to sell goods and services to these individual companies without being hit by restrictions or tariffs. Isn't that it's not going to be an amicable divorce, is it?
Is there ever an amicable divorce?
Yes, I'm testament to that, but that's personal, not business.
You're a good lawyer. Look, I'll tell you what, 27 renegotiations would be the biggest delight that any government could undertake. I assure you of that. And of course, it wouldn't just be 27. It'd be another, whatever it is, 127 around the world.
But there are several other scenarios, aren't there, that we could take? We can take what's known as the Norwegian model. So we would leave the EU but join the European Economic Area. Is that a potentially good thing then? It frees us from all the EU rules on agriculture and home affairs.
Yeah, it's better than what we currently have. It's free trade. It's based on economic cooperation as opposed to regulation coercion. And that is what we're talking about. And I really want to make this metaphorical point. If I were a big bank, I'd spend, say, £100 million a year. Complying with the regulations. It's a drop in the ocean to the big corporations. But as a small financial services organisation, you can't imagine the amount of time that little guys are spending, the amount of percentage of income that little guys are spending complying with the regulations. The EU is anti the little guy and pro the big guy. And there are millions of little guys in the UK who would love to be free of all those regulations.
So I mentioned the Norwegian model. We could also, couldn't we, emulate Switzerland, not a member of the EU but negotiates trade treaties? You'd be for that?
I would be pro getting away from unelected bureaucrats who run the show. This is not an exaggeration. It's not emotion. It's a fact. Unelected bureaucrats, think about that, who run the show, who basically tell us what we have to do and what our little companies have to do. Switzerland, as you say, it has a very democratic model, referenda by the barrelful amongst its people, and it trades happily with the EU. It also trades happily with America and China. Similarly, Norway, as you say, the Norway solution. There are lots of solutions which don't involve Brussels. Any of them work for me.
Jonathan Davis, thank you so much for your call this morning. Jonathan is an economist and a wealth manager.